Have as our guest representative of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Canada, Harry Ho Jen Seng, along with his colleagues, which I'm assuming he will introduce. And this is a continuation of our study about the threat analysis on Indo-Pacific. So, sir, your opening 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It's my great pleasure to be invited once again to share my views on the latest situation in the Taiwan Strait. I appeared at this committee last time in September 2023, and the situation has evolved and changed ever since. In January of this year, Taiwan held its 8th direct presidential election. Mr. Lai Ching-te of the Democratic Progressive Party won the election and took office in May 20th. The people of Taiwan elected a president from the same political party for the 3rd consecutive terms and formed a new legislative yuan, that is our parliament, with no single party holding an absolute majority. This new political landscape is a testament to the will of our people, a democratic triumph achieved amid notable challenges, particularly the political pressure and foreign interference from China. In the wake of the election, China seemed to have stepped up interference seeking to create political stalemate in Taiwan. Shortly after the elections, China escalated its pressure by luring the Republic of Nauru, an island state in the Pacific, to cut diplomatic ties with Taiwan and arbitrarily altered flight routes in the Taiwan Strait. Following the presidential inauguration on May 20th, China conducted so-called punitive drills around Taiwan. Since then, Chinese warplanes and warships have been intruding into our ADIZ and nearby waters, and sometimes crossing the medium line of the Taiwan Strait, a provocative move equally familiar to our neighboring countries. Nevertheless, facing the intensified political and military threats, we have exercised self-restraint and show resolve to safeguard our democracy, peace, and stability. In our commitment to maintaining peace and stability, we have secured domestic consensus to reform our national defense system, extended mandatory military service to 1 year, and increased our 2025 defense budget to 2.6% of GDP. It demonstrates our determination to strengthen self-defense and our belief that peace can only be maintained through strength. In our commitment to protecting shared values, we dedicated ourselves to fortifying democratic alliances for collective deterrence. Since this year, we have seen public statements from the US, Japan, the G7, the European Union, NATO, and Quad, all emphasizing the importance of peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. Notably, the Canada-Australia Defense Relationship Joint Statement, as well as Canada's recently released defense report, have both echoed this sentiment. Unfortunately, despite our self-restraint, we have encountered mounting Chinese pressures to exclude us from participating in international organizations. China, by distorting the UN Resolution 2758 as in line with its One China principle, has used it as legal basis to further isolate Taiwan. In fact, the Resolution 2758 does not mention Taiwan, does not address the political status of Taiwan, does not establish PRC's sovereignty over Taiwan, and does not preclude Taiwan from participating in the UN and its agencies. To sum up, China has recently stepped up misinterpretation of the UN Resolution 2758. It is part of China's lawfare or legal warfare, intending not only to prevent Taiwan's international participation, but also to justify its potential aggression of Taiwan in the future. If China is not stopped from distorting the UN Resolution 2758, when military conflict happens in the Taiwan Strait, it would be illegal for Canada to come to help Taiwan. I call on this committee to heed this critical issue and render support for democratic Taiwan. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your question now.
Thank you, Representative Tseng. Mr. Allison, 6 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you very much for being here today. Taiwan is obviously a very proud leader in the semiconductor industry, and obviously the semiconductors have led the charge when it comes to tech revolution, and now as we look at AI and where that's going. My question to you is, as we look at, I know that TSM is one of the largest in the world, but we see that American companies were actually selling advanced semiconductors to China, and now that's being blocked by the U.S. government. Just love to know your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, the TSMC is making more than 90% of the advanced chips in the world. And we, as a matter of fact, we are part of the so-called export control regime that U.S. has imposed, including Japan, Republic of Korea, and the Netherlands. Taiwan is part of that. And the target of that is really the semiconductor, especially the advanced node semiconductor to be exported to China. So this is very important. As you also mentioned, the coming age of AI. Well, AI can only prosper, thrive with very advanced semiconductors. Those are all the semiconductors for the time being only produced by the TSMC. And so we are a very crucial player in terms of the coming age of AI. I think that there are more and more countries coming to recognize that.
So my question is, in terms of Chinese defense sector, once again, AI is playing a bigger role in every sector, but certainly in defense. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in terms of AI and the Chinese defense sector in terms of how that's progressing.
Well, you must understand that even the mature node of semiconductors, the chips, can be very widely applied in all kinds of applications, including missiles. So it is not that China cannot develop its very advanced missiles or weapons without the TSMC helping them. They can do that. They can do that. As a matter of fact, it's also been reported that the only lifeline of Russia to sustain the war in Ukraine is China. And that is the semiconductors made by China. So we think that the way to deter China is not only by stop selling the semiconductor to China. We should do that, especially the more advanced chips. And TSMC, Taiwan, are cooperating with the like-minded countries led by the United States. But doing that is not everything. China has its capability to make its own missiles with their own chips.
Yep. Thank you. And you mentioned foreign interference from China. We're experiencing that here in Canada as well at many levels. Politically, we know there's a number of members of Parliament, but also through the technology, whether it's university and obviously through industry as well. Do you face the same type of challenges in Taiwan?
Yes. Well, the nature of the foreign interference from China are all the same. I think it's all concerned our national security. But the pattern may be very different because in Taiwan, we are facing the Chinese foreign intervention on a daily basis. It doesn't only happen during the election time. It doesn't happen necessarily only to happen during the wartime. Now, probably people will question whether now is a peacetime because there are many things happening now. But even now, there are a lot of Chinese disinformations in Taiwan. They have a set of policies to spread the disinformation in order to create instigate what we call the cognitive warfare. This was particularly obvious during the presidential election earlier in January this year. There are so many examples. I I don't think I need to mention them one by one, but let me assure you that this is a very urgent and important matter we face in Taiwan.
I've only got a minute left, and I know others will be addressing this question. How concerned are you of an imminent attack from China? I mean, there's been lots of issues. You mentioned that. You list all kinds of them. And what would that do to your chip manufacturing industry?
Honestly, I don't think there is an imminent threat of war in the brewing. But there is difference between a long-term preparation for a war to break out, which is clearly written in their political report in the Party Congress. And there is a difference between that and a long-term preparation and the military drill. Military drills meant to intimidate Taiwan, to intimidate our people. Many people in Taiwan wouldn't seem to be very much concerned, or nobody will panic in Taiwan when they have the military exercise, because they only intend to intimidate. If there is hostile intention discerned from their military exercise, our response will be different. The response from the United States, the like-minded countries, Japan, will be different. So I think there is no imminent threat, but there is an intention there, and they are preparing for it. That preparation.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave the answer there. Thank you, Mr. Allison. Ms. Lapointe, 6 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, Your Excellency. I'm a rather new member to the committee, and I wasn't present when you appeared before this committee in September of 2023. I have reviewed the previous testimony from last year, and at that time you said, no region in the world is exempt from the geopolitical complexities we face today. What is happening in the Indo-Pacific is unavoidably related to what is taking place in other parts of the world, and vice versa, notably in Ukraine, Central Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. The most unnerving geopolitical risks today are to be found in either the Russia-Ukraine war, the U.S.-China rivalry, or the North Korea aggression and tension in the Taiwan Strait. Can you tell me, in your opinion, is the situation in the Indo-Pacific region different today? And if so, in what ways is it different?
Thank you very much for your question, and thank you for referring back to what I said last year. I think if there is a difference, it can be seen as an incremental escalation of the threat. China, there is also one difference very clearly from what it was last year. That is the internal difficulties that China is facing today. But that I'm referring to not only economic difficulty, because economic difficulty can quickly switch to fiscal difficulty and to the social problem, and then to political problem in China. It can escalate very quickly, and that can affect their external behavior. And so I think we actually need to pay more attention to what's happening in the Indo-Pacific. And I think that is exactly many of the like-minded countries are doing now. I don't know if you have noticed in the past 24 hours, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia all sent their naval ship to transit through the Taiwan Strait. This is the first time we've seen that happen. It is the first time New Zealand sent their naval ship to the Taiwan Strait. You will be surprised that this is also the first time Japan did this by herself. So we know we have the support of the world because the situation there were the focus of the global attention, but we still have much more to do. We cannot afford to be complacent. We must be aware of that.
Can you tell us what the current situation is with China's gray zone tactics towards Taiwan? Has there been an escalation in frequency? And from your perspective, what are the most concerning tactics they employ?
The gray zone tactics, by definition, is actually a combination of all kinds of military or non-military threat that they can impose on Taiwan in this case. And so it's gray zone, so it's very difficult to be seen or regarded as a war behavior. So it will constrain the other foreign countries to react, because if it is a war, then perhaps international condemnation and sanctions will come immediately. But China is trying to avoid that. But to Taiwan, again, Taiwan's situation is so unique, different from any other countries, what you perceive as the Chinese gray zone tactics. But in Taiwan, the gray zone tactics is a combination of their disinformation campaign, is of their cyber attack, is their cognitive warfare. They create all kinds of scenarios to confuse your societies, to confuse the voters in order to nurture a candidate of their liking. Things like that is not what your NCCOP have found out in Canada. It is 1 or 2 notch higher in Taiwan.
And how does Taiwan navigate the increasing geopolitical competition between the U.S. and China in the Indo-Pacific? And what role can diplomatic engagement with countries like Canada play in ensuring its security? Sorry.
Navigate is, I don't think it's the word I would use. I think we are a democratic country. We have already taken side being a democratic country. So it is not that we navigate between the U.S. or China. But proximity is very important in geopolitical strategy. We are living by a giant neighbor. We don't want to create any hostility, unnecessary tension across the strait. So we need to find out a way to deal with our neighbor. And this is why you find politicians in Taiwan sometimes are able to appeal to their supporters and get support. Otherwise, no. Now, a very important fundamental truth is in Taiwan, more than 85% of respondents to the questionnaire would prefer maintenance of the status quo. So it gives you a sense that we just want the status quo.
Thank you. Madame Normandine, 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Ambassador Tsang, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for being here. I have some questions as to a blockus rather than a military invasion. You said the military invasion might not be imminent per se, but a complete blockus of the island would be problematic because the U.S. do not recognize that as an act of war. Could you tell us what the West can do to prevent this happening or respond?
Thank you very much. The question is a very important question to ask. I don't have anecdote to panacea to cure this question, to cure this problem. Blockade is indeed one option that China can deal with Taiwan, and they have already used a few live-fire drill exercises, like after Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. It is a blockade of almost a week. But there is argument of all kinds, and analysts, experts believe that blockade, if your intention is to have Taiwan surrender, blockade is not a viable approach because you just don't know how long does it need to take for the blockade to sustain. And once you have the blockade, all the countries that have shown concern of the peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait should immediate response to the Chinese blockade. It doesn't need to be an act of war for the international condemnation to come. If a blockade in that area, Taiwan Strait is the most busy strait in the world. More than 50% of the containers in the global trade go through the Taiwan Strait. It is definitely going to disrupt the global trade. Since like that, all the country will be affected. And I think for us to counter the Chinese blockade, a very quick and concerted response from the like-minded countries is paramount.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Je voudrais vous entendre sur la priorité.
Can you tell me about the priority setting for Canada in terms of its support for Taiwan? There could be indirect military support through frigates that we could send to the strait. We could think of economic support by strengthening or bolstering our investments in various areas. Also, unofficial or diplomatic support, because there is no official diplomatic link. What should be Canada's priority when you look at these options? What would be most supportive of Taiwan?
Yes, it's also a very important question to us. When I look at Canada and think about what Canada can do to help Taiwan, I think what you are already doing, sending your warships to transit the Taiwan Strait, is very much appreciated. You already have full transit after the issue of the Indo-Pacific strategy more than 1 year and a half ago. So that is very important, because the more countries coming to show their intention to keep the Taiwan Strait as the international water, as high sea, the more China will feel constrained, because China doesn't want to see the Taiwan Strait as the international water. They think that that means stop it. But in terms of the Canadian assistance to Taiwan, there are many other things, non-military approach that you can render to Taiwan. I don't know if you have noticed that recently there is a group of the former security and defense officers from Canada visiting Taiwan. And they came back last weekend and was already interviewed by the CBC Politics, Power and Politics. They see Canada as a matter of fact, very timid and very shy in terms of dealing with Taiwan. They are certainly comparing with what Canada can do with those other countries in the like-minded communities, in the Western countries. There's many things that Canada can do, and what was mentioned in that interview is the exchange of visit, high-level exchange of visit. Now, Prime Minister and the governor cannot visit Taiwan, can be understood because of maybe they carry a symbol of sovereignty. But then all the officials under them, there is no reason you cannot do, because many other countries are doing that. But I think if you can have a higher visit to Taiwan, it is very important to the Taiwanese people, because we want to know that we are not alone. Our people want to know that we are standing for a good cause, and we have support from the like-minded countries. That's very important to us.
Thank you, Ms. Normandine. Ms. Masson, 6 minutes.
It's very good to see you again here at this committee, and always. You discussed UN Resolution 2758. The Interparliamentary Alliance on China met to certainly discuss the perceived changes that may be occurring in that area. Can you talk about that meeting that happened in July and what that meant to Taiwan?
Okay, I believe the members of the committee knows about IPAC, right? IPAC, Interparliamentary Alliance on China. This is a cross-country parliamentary alliance always reviewing what China is doing in the world and come up with a concerted effort trying to safeguard democracy. In their last meeting in late July in Taipei, they passed a model resolution to urge all those members to go back to their home country and to encourage their colleagues to pass similar resolutions in their parliaments respectively. So it is very important to us because what we have read legalistically from the UN Resolution 2758 is not what China has portrayed to the world. China has a very clear distortion of this resolution, and using that as a legal base, as I said in my opening remarks, that legal base should not be taken lightly because legal lawfare is very important. China cares about its image. They want the world to know that they are doing anything to Taiwan according to the international law in their reading. So we need to know that it is entirely not the fact of what the UN Resolution 2758 has said. It is not its content. And I don't know if I have more time to explain this resolution. Otherwise, I'll stop here.
Ms. Masson has about 3 minutes left. I'm sure.
And certainly continue on with that, because I know that very recently, the Netherlands and Australia also, they did that. They went back to their home country. So if you could expand on that, continue on, but also how Canada has to move in the same direction or what you're working towards in terms of Canada doing the same.
Thank you. This resolution passed in 1971, October 1971, only mentioned two things, very simple. It's a very short resolution. Number one, to recognize the representative of the PRC as the legal representative from China in the UN. That's number one. Number two, to expel. So one is to recognize, the other is to expel the representative of Chiang Kai-shek from the seat they unlawfully occupied in the UN. These are what mentioned in the very short resolution. It does not mention Taiwan at all. It does not set any bearings on the UN member states' political relations with Taiwan at all. What I said that it certainly does not preclude Taiwan from participating in the international organization at all. Unfortunately, after 1971, when China was recognized by the countries in the world, one after the other, the whole world just ascribed to what China interpret as it is from the resolution. Now, even more so, China is taking Resolution 2758 as equivalent to its One China principle. If you don't stop them from distorting this resolution, you are giving China a blank check as to whatever they want to do to Taiwan. It is a clear distortion of the world order.
You've got 1.5 minutes.
Okay, so in terms of what you're seeing in that change, so after that meeting in July, there were two nations, like I said, Australia and the Netherlands, who did go back. What kind of dynamic has that created since then? What are you seeing? Do you feel like there's that more movement will occur? I mean, those two things happen very quickly, but as we move forward?
Many colleagues of mine in different missions, they are reaching out to their counterpart, as I have been doing in meeting the MPs and senators here in Ottawa. I try to explain to them that this is important not only to Taiwan, but to you as well. And this has in no way violated your current policy. This is very important. Taiwan does not seek to change the status quo. We are not trying to abolish this resolution. We are only asking you to rectify what China has distorted. We are asking for the distortion to be rectified, to be changed. That's all. And so I really hope that Canada can follow this model resolution as it has happened in Australian Parliament and the Netherlands, the Dutch Parliament. If a resolution can pass or a motion can pass the House of Commons or the Senate, it would be very much appreciated, and it would be a big morale booster to Taiwan.
Thank you, Ms. Masson. That completes our first round. I think we can squeeze a full 25-minute second round if we're tight, and I don't have to interrupt people too much. Ms. Gallant, 5 minutes.
Excellency, how would an actual armed attack on Taiwan by China impact Canadians here at home?
This is a hypothetical question, right? China's attack on Taiwan, how would it affect Canada? Well, first of all, I think if we see the like-minded countries in the world as a body, as a family, you probably don't want the value you stand for to be challenged. If you ask this question, can you also ask question, if Ukraine cave in to Putin, what would it happen in Canada? On the first side, it doesn't seem to happen to cause any change of your life, right? But I think that's the thin end of the wedge. Well, it can come to you because it is very clear China's intention is not only Taiwan. If China wants to only deal with Taiwan, they don't need to prepare missiles, thousands of them, deployed on the east-west coast. All that range, they can shoot missiles way over Taiwan and then reach to somewhere else in the world, including in your territory. They will not stop at Taiwan. It is a challenge to the international rule of law. The rule-based international order is what they challenge. You probably don't want to do that, especially now we are talking about a geopolitical reality that these countries are not acting alone. They are aligned with their peers, right? So China is working with Russia, Ukraine, in the Ukraine theater, Russia, North Korea, Iran. Now they call it the new axis of evil. Things like that. So we should not single out any part of the world, especially when China's intention is so well known, and they are trying to dominate in all the international organizations, trying to have their way through the international community. So you don't want to see that happen. It's a very direct impact on Canada.
In addition to transiting the Taiwan Strait, what can Canada do now to prevent China from invading Taiwan?
We probably cannot say for sure how you can stop China from doing that, because if this is an autocratic country and everything can be decided by one person, and when things become like that, it's very unpredictable. It is not like the logic goes that way and then you come to a conclusion. It can be so unpredictable. It is so depending on one person. And this is why when I say that China is having problem at home, it can quickly translate into some belligerent actions abroad. So what you want to do, I think the best way, and which is effective so far and is still continuing, is a collective deterrence. Look, China meant to intimidate. Intimidation can be countered by deterrence, especially when this is a collective deterrence, when this is a credible deterrence.
What does Taiwan need that Canada can provide in terms of military assistance?
U.S. is the only country that sells arms to Taiwan. If I want to ask Canada to follow suit, I may be asking for too much. You probably are not ready to do that, but there are many things we can do together. Look, if Canada and New Zealand and Australia you already have the 2+2 meetings, right? Foreign minister and defense minister. Well, let us follow. Let us be an observer to that, or could we have a deputy minister level of 2+2, things like that. There are many things we can do because we have only done that much. Look, I have all the friendship in the global affairs, but I think I want to say to my friends in the global affairs, some of them may be listening now, that there are many more we can do.
Joint exercises be something that we could do?
Joint exercises will be led by the U.S., right?
Right.
We have our involvement in that, not like the warship together with the operation, but personnel. But of course, if you can use all the international forums to speak up for Taiwan, we appreciate that very much. You are much stronger than you think you are. So we appreciate your assistance anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Gallant. Madame Lalonde, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for being here, and it's nice to see you. You did mention a greater presence of our partners and our ally in the Taiwan Strait, and you made a brief reference to Canada's presence. Certainly, I know there have been increased presence in the Indo-Pacific region, including in the South China Sea. Last year, certainly here in Canada, we watched a Canadian military helicopter, our CH-148 Cyclone, that was, and I'll describe this as buzzed by two People's Liberation Army Air Force J-11s. It was clear that in our view, and I think in those that share values like us, that this was an unprofessional and very unsafe activity. Can you maybe speak to our committee about the impact of this type of behavior, but also whether our partners and our allies are experiencing the same type of engagement in the region?
Thank you very much for the question. Everybody knows that war is least desirable. So decision makers of almost every country would try to prevent war from happening. But war happens by accident. This kind of unprofessional contact, it can easily cause a mid-air collision, as it had happened before. It happened in year 2001, and above the island of Hainan. So it is not far from what this helicopter encounter has happened. So how to prevent that from happening? It takes two to tango, though. If you already make your intention very clearly known to the other side, if they choose to just ignore your aspiration, you really have very little to do about it. But again, collective effort is very important. The strength of the like-minded countries is we are really working with each other. China has no countries to work with them. Look, those countries that they work with were actually cornered one way or the other in different conflicts. So, and look at the collective strengths of the bloc, like-minded countries, and those countries, not only the axis of evils, but entirely those countries that would befriend China in the UN altogether. Their economic wealth is not to compare with the like-minded countries. We are in a stronger place. We shouldn't act as we are in a weaker place.
Thank you very much. And I think my next question would be on the diplomatic presence. And maybe we can, you talked about GAC and maybe listening, but under the Canada Indo-Pacific strategy, how does Canada works with the U.S.? And you did mention Japan in the region as a presence. How do our partners engage in the region, and what does Canada's diplomatic presence in the Indo-Pacific region entails? And maybe how do we work closer and better going forward?
as always.
Thank you. Honestly, I think this IPS Canada issued in November 2022 is a very comprehensive and very progressive policy. After all, this is unprecedented in Canada. You never have that kind of policy involving so many agencies and things like that. So you have a very good roadmap as to how you want to engage in the Indo-Pacific strategy, in the Indo-Pacific region. Canada also is very important in G7 as well as in NATO. This strength seems not so much perceived by the Canadian people. That is very unfortunate. I think you shouldn't always see yourself as just a medium power. And when you say that, you think about the population, the size of your population. But you are a rich country. You are second to only Russia in terms of the territory. You are so rich in natural resources. You haven't used all your assets yet. And this is why I think that Canada should play a greater leadership. If you think the current leadership is not sufficient, you probably shouldn't only complain, right? You should take up greater leadership in the G7, in NATO, in the like-minded countries. And in that case, anything between Canada and Taiwan can loom large. I mean, our bilateral relationship would be upgraded to another level.
Thank you, Madame Lalonde. Madame Normandine, 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. Il y a tellement de questions.
Thank you. I have so many questions, but I'd like to get back to microprocessors that are, in a way, Taiwan's insurance policy. To what extent can Taiwan deal with this, the fact that China is developing its expertise, India as well? To what extent can this be a turning point, the fact that these countries could actually be ahead of Taiwan in this expertise?
We are not too worried about whether China will catch up or supersede Taiwan in terms of the chip manufacturing. As I said, China is still very strong at making the mature node chips because they already have that supply chain. They already have an internal market of all kinds of electricity appliances. And so they make the mature node chips, and there is market internally to use them internally. And so, and at the same time, that kind of chip, it may be only 50 nanometers, very not mature at all, or not as advanced as 7 nanometer or even smaller. But those can be used in the weaponry systems. That is the concern. But as I said, leading by the U.S. passed the law in 2020. It's 2021, right? October 2021 of the Chip and Science Act, and then mobilizing the like-minded countries to work together. That is still going on, and that effort reflect on the export control. So Taiwan, we are TSMC and other chip makers in Taiwan. It is not under embargo or under the sanction to export their chips to China, but those are the chips that China can make anyway. But certainly those more advanced chips that can only be made in Taiwan, that do not go to China at all. And China, because of this external pressure, they are trying to really use the so-called whole of government approach to break the bottleneck. They want to have their own very advanced chips. They claim that they are able to make some, like 7 or 5 nanometer chips, but they are actually talking about made it in a lab. When
We're going to have to leave the answer there, unfortunately.
okay,
2.5 minutes.
the business viable, not commercially viable.
2.5 minutes, Ms. Matson.
The Civil Aviation Administration of China unilaterally changed the international, was it the International Civil Aviation Organization's regulations in terms of certain flight routes. On January 30th, they revoked those cross-strait agreements on certain flight routes. It's my understanding that actually it created a very dangerous situation. It jeopardized aviation safety, peace, stability. Can you update the committee on what's occurred since then in terms of how that's undermined the strait and what's gone on since that January 30th decision?
Thank you very much. It's actually a very complicated story, but the fact is as part of their reaction to our presidential election, our presidential election result elected someone least welcome to China. So they have a series of actions following our election to punish Taiwan, and this is one of them. And this change, unilateral change of the flight routes in the middle of the Taiwan Strait, already very close to the medium line, but they now make it even closer. That, not only that, that is no southbound, Taiwan Strait, no southbound. They actually reactivated another route connecting to the medium, it's M503 in the middle of the Taiwan Strait. Now, if they fly eastward from the coast areas to connect to this M503, either to fly northbound or southbound, they are actually coming to the middle of the Taiwan Strait without you being able to discern if this is a passenger flight or a military warplane. And that is already taken half the distance they need to cross the Taiwan Strait, squeezing our air defense zone. And so it is very much a national security concern to us. But we brought this up to ICAO. ICAO seems unable to find anything to check the Chinese behavior. According to the ICAO regulation, any change of the flight route should be informed or negotiated priorly with your adjacent FIR, and that is Taipei FIR, Flight Information Region. But they didn't do that at all.
I appreciate you. This is a complicated question and a complicated answer, but 2.5 minutes is unfortunately 2.5 minutes, and we are getting close to the time where we lose the room. I think Mr. Brazan, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Your Excellency. Always great to see you. Appreciate you coming here and telling us how things are going. Yesterday, it was reported that the People's Republic of China launched an intercontinental ballistic missile Wednesday morning. It fell into the sea near the French Polynesia. This is the first time since 1982 that they actually announced that they're testing an ICBM. Do you see this as a further escalation of hostilities in the region by the PRC?
It is a news greatly to a lot of people's surprise, including myself. This test of ICBM, exactly what was the reason for this test to be conducted? There is one saying, I don't know how credible that is. Have you heard about the silo, missile silo in Russia exploded, imploded when they were trying to fire the missiles from Russia to Ukraine. So there were an explosion of the silos because of some dysfunction. And the speculation is, since early on this year, you have heard about the rocket force in China involving all kinds of corruptions, right? So the leadership of the rocket force in China has been purged, and it is quite a few generals being taken into custody and facing all, some committed suicide. So Xi Jinping may want to see if there's some corruption in the rocket force, by testing a missile, the ICBM. And by doing this, it can also supervise the rocket force to do a better job, because what just happened, it is reportedly happened in Russia, an explosion of the silo. If that happens in China, you can see how many more.
Essentially, it's multi-purpose. It's one to test the new rocket force. It's one to escalate regional tensions, and third is to make sure that their missiles aren't archaic and dangerous sitting in the tubes. What they've witnessed in the
One
state.
thing that testifies is that you don't need an ICBM to invade Taiwan, right? So
Talking about a regional
right.
escalation, more so than just Taiwan.
It can impact the U.S. and impact Canada too.
So just to follow up on your comment that you say that the PRC sees Canada as timid, and you said they
I didn't
just the
say
way
PRCC Canada. I said the group from Canada as a former senior defense and security officers visiting Taiwan, and after they return to Canada in an interview, they see that Canada is
timid.
among the shyest of the Western countries in terms of dealing with Taiwan.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. So they're saying that we're being too timid in how we approach Taiwan. But I've also heard from some of the diplomatic corps here, too. If you look at the PLA Navy and the PLA Air Force's interaction with Canadian ships and Canadian aircraft, including helicopters and maritime surveillance aircraft, the Auroras and the Cyclones, that the very dangerous, as Ms. Lalonde referred to, the very dangerous interaction and intercepts that were done by the PLA were more aggressive, and this is according to other diplomats I've heard from, that is more aggressive than what they've encountered or other nations encountered when navigating the Strait of Taiwan. Would you agree with that for whatever reason the PRC takes a more aggressive stance with Canada than, say, it would do with the United States or Australia, or France and Germany just sailed through?
Thank you very much. It's actually a very interesting observation. Indeed, they didn't come to challenge like what they have challenged the helicopter. So why on earth they chose Canadian helicopter or Canadian warships to show hostility? I don't know, really. I don't know.
That's all we could do is speculate based upon the comments from our former military and intelligence advisors that were just recently in Taiwan. We hope to have a committee soon that they just see Canada as being too weak.
Okay. Mr. Pawlowski, who could never be described as shy. 5 minutes.
NATO recently said that China was enabling Russia's war against Ukraine. Certainly, if anyone understands PRC, it's Taiwan. All countries act in their own self-interest. China, probably more than most countries, acts in its own self-interest. What is China gaining, either economically or politically, by enabling the war in Ukraine?
Every country has its own national interest, but to the Chinese Communist Party, this national interest is actually party interest. And why is invading Taiwan, or only the rhetorics of invading Taiwan, would be to the Chinese Communist Party's interest? Because they need a reason to show that their rule of China is legitimate. They used to be able to do that by giving the Chinese people the economic benefit. There seems to be an intangible social contract between the party and the Chinese people, like saying to the Chinese people, foresee your political right to me, that the Chinese Communist Party take care of your political participation and the political right. In return, I give you prosperity. This is what the Chinese Communist Party has been doing for decades, and they actually were able to do that, given this maybe one of the reasons why corruption in China was so rampant. But this is how they are trying to convince the Chinese people, let us, the Communist Party, take care of everything politically, but economically you get the benefit. Now they know that they are not able to sustain that economic benefit. They are creating another legitimate reasons for them to continue to get the support from the Chinese people. That is nationalism, nationalistic feelings. And one thing about that is actually Taiwan, because they see Taiwan as not only as a renegade province, but as a legacy of the Second World War. And the Second World War immediately connected to China's image of so-called 100 years humiliation. They try to justify what they do to the world as only asking for a justice, because for the past 100 years, you have treated China with all kinds of unequal treaties, and now they are only asking for some fairness. I hope you don't buy their argument, because this is all nonsense. This is all nonsense. They are, if this is the case, why don't they do that on the day one of their PRC's establishment? They are only going to this, taken to this result when the other economic incentive no longer going to sustain. So it's very easy to come up with all pretexts, right?
Do you think part of the reason for China's supporting Russia that any victory by Russia emboldens them to be more aggressive against Taiwan?
I would agree to that. And I think that things are happening not in the way that Xi Jinping would hope to happen, because it probably is not only on his mind, but to the minds of many people, including people in this room, that when the invasion happened in February 24th, 2022, it will probably take only a few weeks or a few months for Putin to, take up a chunk of the territory in Ukraine, and then that will be it. But fortunately, it didn't happen that way. So now they have come to the juncture that they have to huddle each other even closer, because they are already seen as one.
You're done if you're not done. Anyways, Representative Singh, I just wanted to thank you once again for your what's turning out to be an annual appearance before the committee. I don't know whether there will be a third annual appearance before the committee, but we'll have to see. Some of us live in hope. And I just, on behalf of the committee, just want to thank you for your enlightenment. Following up on Ms. Masson's question, there is an effort to get the IPAC resolution to a point of unanimous consent. And those of you who have some influence with those who might make those decisions, we'd encourage you to do so. Colleagues, this does bring to a close our threat assessment on Indo-Pacific. I think we are, frankly, a little on the light side on this threat assessment, and I would be interested in off-the-line conversation as to whether there should be a follow-up to a very valuable, useful understanding of not only the threat to Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific, but what the implications are for Canada. So, Mr. Bazan, and it has to be very quick.
Just on that, Mr. Chair, with the Canadian delegation that just returned, I think it would be extremely helpful to invite them to talk about this, and I support that 100%.
We can pursue that. Next week, we're going to do the, right off the top is the report on housing. Presumably that week we might also do the report on transparency if we're efficient. We have commitments from Minister Blair for the following week for his appearance along with his officials, and Minister Sajjan for following Thanksgiving, and Minister Duclos following Thanksgiving. So I think that we've got a kind of a path forward, and when C-66 lands, it lands, and we'll make some adjustments accordingly. Again, thank you so much. We appreciate this.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Meeting adjourned.